Samsy. Story time with Ronnie. Oh boy, here we go. We got the Island of Dr. Moreau, Part 20. Oh, it's getting exciting. Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. All right, what are we doing? Well, we're going to head on down the Mogollon Rim, and we starting out here at Point Campground, and we'll just mosey our way out of this here campground, and we'll make our way down the most famous, most beautiful Mogollon Rim. Now, this story, this Dr. Moreau thingy, Prendrick was getting the lecture still, and Moreau. Have I been saying Monroe or Moreau? It's Moreau, and he's been giving him the lecture and telling him he's having trouble not shaping the bodies but shaping the brain. They always turn out to be animals, so we'll pick it up back there. But it is in the subtle grafting and reshaping one must needs do to the brain that my trouble lies. The intelligence is often oddly low, with unaccountable blank ends, unexpected gaps. At least satisfactory of all is something I cannot touch. Somewhere, I cannot determine where, in the seat of the emotions, cravings, instincts, desires that harm humanity, a strange hidden reservoir to burst forth suddenly and inundate the whole being of the creature with anger, hate, or fear. These creatures of mine seemed strange and uncanny to you as soon as you began to observe them. But to me, just after I make them, they seem to be indisputable human beings. It's afterwards, as I observe them, that the persuasion fades. One animal trait, then another, creeps to the surface and stares at me. But I will conquer yet. Each time I dip a living creature into the bath of burning pain, I say, this time I will burn out all the animal. This time I will make a rational creature of my own. After all, what is 10 years? Man has been 100,000 in the making. He thought darkly. But I am drawing near the fastness. This puma of mine, after a silence, and they revert. As soon as my hand is taken from them, the beast begins to creep back, begins to assert itself again. Another long silence. Then you take the things you make into those dens, said I. They go. I turn them out when I begin to feel the beast in them, and presently they wander there. They all dread this house and me. There is a kind of travesty of humanity over there. Montgomery knows about it, for he interferes in their affairs. He has trained one or two of them to our service. He's ashamed of it, but I believe he half likes some of those beasts. It's his business, not mine. They only sicken me with a sense of failure. I take no interest in them. I fancy they follow in the lines the Kanaka missionary marked out, and have a kind of mockery of a rational life. Poor beasts. There's something they call the law, sing hymns about all thine. They build themselves their dens, gather their fruit, and pull her herbs. Marry even, but I can see through it all, see into their very souls, and see there's nothing but the souls of beasts, beasts that perish, anger, and the lust to live and gratify themselves. Yet they're odd, complex like everything else alive. There is a kind of upward striving in them, part vanity, part waste sexual emotion, part waste curiosity. It only mocks me. Oh, see, here we changed, and we're going to start the big old slide down the Mogollon Rim, and I got the volume turned down so far because that road is just so beat up, and everything just makes just a horrendous amount of noise in there. If the road's nice, it's beautiful, but if it's a banger, oh boy, it only mocks me. I have some hope of that puma. I have worked hard at her and brain, at her head and brain, and now, said he, standing up after a long gap of silence, during which we had each pursued our own thoughts. What do you think? Are you in fear of me still? I looked at him and saw but a white-faced, white-haired man with calm eyes, save for his serenity, the touch almost of beauty that resulted from his set tranquility and his magnificent build. He might have passed muster among 100 other comfortable old gentlemen. Yet I shivered. By way of answer to his second question, I handed him a revolver with either hand. "Keep them," he said, and snatched at a yarn. He stood up, stared at me for a moment, and smiled. "You have had 2 eventful days," said he. "I should advise some sleep. I'm glad it's all clear. Good night." He thought me over for a moment, then went out by the inner door. I immediately turned the key in the outer one. I sat down again, sat for a time in a kind of stagnant mood, so weary, emotionally, mentally, and physically, that I could not think beyond the point at which he left me. The black window stared at me like an eye. At last, with an effort, I put out the light and got into the hammock. Very soon, I was asleep. Oh, there we go. That's the end of the chapter. We're moving on to chapter 15. Uh-oh. Chapter 15. Let's take a look at this drive. It's the usual. Oh, and it's summertime, so there's probably a lot of smoke in the air. It's either there's a fire, but it's either prescribed or not. But either way, it's summertime and it's going to be burning. All right, chapter 15. Concerning the beast folk. I woke early. Moreau's explanation stood before my mind, clear and definite. From the moment of my awakening, I got out of the hammock and I went to the door to assure myself that the key was turned. Then I tried the window bar and found it firmly fixed. That these man-like creatures were in truth only bestial monsters, more grotesque travaties of men, filled me with a vague uncertainty of their possibilities that was far worse than any definite fear. A tapping came at the door, and I heard the glutinous accents of M. Ling speaking. I pocketed one of the revolvers, keeping one hand upon it, and opened to him. "Good morning, sir," he said, bringing in addition to the customary herb breakfast, an ill-cooked rabbit. Montgomery followed him. His roving eye caught the position of my arm, and he smiled askew. The puma was resting to heal that day, but Moreau, who was singularly solitary in his habits, did not join us. I talked with Montgomery to clear my ideas of the way in which the beast folk lived. In particular, I was urgent to know how these inhuman monsters were kept from falling apart, were kept from falling upon Moreau and Montgomery, and from rending one another. He explained to me that the comparative safety of Moreau and himself was due to the limited mental scope of these monsters. In spite of their increased intelligence and the tendency of their animal instincts to reawaken, they had certain fixed ideas implanted by Moreau in their minds, which absolutely bounded their imaginations. They were really hypnotized, had been told that certain things were impossible, and certain things were not to be done. These prohibitions were woven into the texture of their minds, beyond any possibility of disobedience or dispute. Certain matters, however, in which old instinct was at war with Moreau's convenience, were in a less stable condition. A series of propositions called the law, I have already heard them recited, battled in their minds with the deep-seated, ever-rebellious cravings of their animal natures. This law that they were perpetually repeating, I found, and perpetually breaking, both Montgomery and Moreau displayed particular solicitude to keep them ignorant of the taste of blood. They feared the inevitable suggestions of that flavor. Montgomery told me that the law, especially among the feline beast people, became oddly weakened about nightfall, that then the animal was at its strongest. A spirit of adventure sprang up in them at the dusk. They would dare things they never seemed to dream about by day. To that I owed my stalking by the leopard man on the night of my arrival. But during these early days of my stay, they broke the law only furtively and after dark. In the daylight, there was a general atmosphere of respect for its multifarious prohibitions. And here, perhaps, I may give a few general facts about the island and the beast people. The island, which was of irregular outline and lay low upon the wide sea, had a total area, I suppose, of 7 or 8 square miles. It was volcanic in origin and was now fringed on 3 sides by coral reefs. Some fumaroles to the northward and a hot spring were the only vestiges of the forces that had long since originated it. Now and then a faint quiver of earthquake would be sensible. And sensible? And sometimes the ascent of the spire of smoke would be rendered tumultuous by gusts of steam. But that was all. The population of the island, Montgomery informed me, now numbered rather more than 60 of these strange creatures of the Moreau's art, not counting the smaller monstrosities which lived in the undergrowth and were without human form. Altogether, he had made nearly 120, but many had died, and others, like the writhing, wow, like the writhing, footless thing of which he had told me, had come by violent ends. In question to my answer, Montgomery said that they actually bore offspring, but that these generally died. There was no evidence of the inheritance of their acquired human characteristics. The females were less numerous than the males, and liable to much furtive persecution in spite of the monogamy of the law enjoined. No idea. Let's take a look at this drive. Oh, we're going up the hill. Good. You see those expansion joints? Boy, they just slam. Yeah, this whole thing. I need another 6 airbags. Computer AI controlled. All of that. It would be impossible for me to describe these beast people in detail. My eye has had no training in details, and unhappily I cannot sketch. More striking, perhaps, in their general appearance, was the disproportion between the legs of these creatures and the length of their bodies, and yet so relative is our idea of grace, my eye became habituated to their forms, and at last I even fell in with their persuasion that my own long thighs were ungainly. Another point was the forward carriage of the head and the clumsy and inhuman curvature of the spine. Even the ape-man lacked that inward sinuous curve of the back that makes the human figure so graceful. Most had their shoulders hunched clumsily, and their short forearms hung weakly at their sides. Few of them were conspicuously hairy, at least until the end of my time upon the island. What, were they losing their hair or something? All right, let's take a look and see what we're doing. We're closing in on this thing. We're only a few minutes away, so let's start looking ahead here. The next most obvious deformity was in their faces, almost all of which were prognathious. Jesus, Murphy. Prognathious. I'm not even going to try it. That's not even right. Not even close to right. And I'm not looking it up today. If it shows up again, yeah, okay. But here we go. Malformed about the ears, with large and protuberant noses, very furry or very bristly hair, and often strangely colored or strangely placed eyes. None could laugh, though the ape-man had a mirthless grin. Beyond these general characteristics, their heads had little in common. Each preserved the quality of its particular species. The human mark distorted but did not hide the leopard, the ox, or the sow, or other animal or animals from which the creature had been molded. The voices, too, varied exceedingly. The hands were always malformed, and though some surprised me by their unexpected human appearance, almost all were deficient in the number of the digits, clumsy about the fingernails, and lacking any tactile sensibility. The two most formidable animal men were my leopard man and a creature made of hyena and swine. Larger than these were the 3 bull creatures who pulled in the boat. Then came the silvery, hairy man, who was also the sayer of the law, M'ling, and a satyr-like creature of ape and goat. There were 3 swine men and a swine woman, a horse rhinoceros creature, and several other females whose sources I did not ascertain. There were several wolf creatures, a bear bull, and a St. Bernard dog man. I have already described the ape man, and there was a particularly hateful and evil-smelling old woman made of vixen and bear, whom I hated from the beginning. She was said to be a passionate votary of the law. Smaller creatures were certain dappled youths, my little sloth creature. At first I had a shivering horror of the brutes, but felt all too keenly that they were still brutes. But insensibly I became a little habituated to the idea of them. And moreover, I was affected by Montgomery's attitudes toward them. He had been with them so long that he had come to regard them as almost normal human beings. His London days seemed a glorial, good Lord, his London days seemed a glorious, impossible past to him. Only once in a year or so did he go to Arica to deal with Moreau's agent, a trader in animals there. He hardly met the finest type of mankind in that seafaring village of Spanish mongrels. The men aboard ship, he told me, seemed at first such as strange to him as the grells. Hang on a second. As the beast men seemed to me unnaturally long in the leg, flat in the face, prominent in the forehead, suspicious, dangerous, and cold-hearted. In fact, he did not like men. His heart had warmed to me, he thought, because he had saved my life. I fancied even then that he had a sneaking kindness for some of these metamorphosed brutes, a vicious sympathy with some of their ways, but that he attempted to veil it. He attempted to veil it from me at first. M'ling, the black-faced man, his attendant, the first of the beast folks I encountered, did not live with the others across the island, but in a small kennel at the back of the enclosure. The creature was scarcely so intelligent as the ape man, but far more docile, and the most human-looking of all the beast folk. And Montgomery had trained it to prepare food, and indeed to discharge all of the trivial domestic offices that were required. It was a complex trophy of Moreau's horrible skill. A bear, tainted with dog and ox, and one of the most elaborately made of all his creatures. It treated Montgomery with a strange tenderness and devotion. Sometimes he would notice it pat it in a half-mocking, half-jocular names, and so make it caper with extraordinary delight. Sometimes he would ill-treat it, especially after it had been at the whiskey, kicking it, beating it, pelting it with stones, or lighting fuses. But whether he treated it well or ill, it loved nothing so much as to be near him. Oh, evil, evil monkey. All right, let's just leave it there. That's a good spot. We're closing in on the end of the chapter, but we got just too far to go. So we're going to mark it there. You know, this story's starting to really bug me. I don't know how much left there is to do in it, but it's starting to really bug me. So we might you know, talk it over with the executive team and see if we're going to put Dr. Moreau down or not. Let's see what happens from the peanut gallery here. All right, this drive, always at the bottom, there's a couple of old historic ranches in the area. I think they're probably dude ranches now. Okay, yeah, guys, all right. Should we talk about them green alligators then? No green alligators or pink elephants or anything like that. Just a nice drive down the mountains and a hot summer day. Boy, it's been a while since it rained there. All right, guys, thank you so much for coming along, and we'll get a little further next time. This Dr. Moreau thing, I don't know. It's starting to bug me. We'll have to see how it goes. All right, but for now, we'll just do this other thing, and we'll see where we end up. Sam C. But I know there's Big Rosie, and that'll get it straight. I see you in the window there, you big old Rosie. Okay, girl, you go now. Yeah, there we go. Oh, now I feel better. You're right. I feel better now.